forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos. This block is called Underdog and it's 12-inch finished. Here's the diagram in 4 blocks set block to block. It's a 3x3 grid. This is, I'll go down here, this is a block from the Stitch Pink 2020 quilt from Moda Fabrics. If you scan this or click on this code, it will take you to their pattern for this block. I might have changed it up a little bit. In this block, we have stitch and flip units in the corners using A and B patches. And we have the C patch that makes these quarter square triangles that are the side units. And then we just have a plain patch for the A unit in the center. As always, I suggest making a test block before cutting multiple blocks. Now for the patches. Patch A is a 4-inch finished square. We cut 4.5-inch squares. We'll need 4 patches for the background fabric and 1 patch for the dark fabric. The background fabrics are the stitch and flip units in the corners, and the dark fabric is the center square. And all the AccuQuilt dies are listed here. Patch B is a 2-inch finished square. We cut 2.5-inch squares. We'll need 4 patches of the light fabric. And these are for the B part of the stitch and flip in the corners. And the last patch is patch C. It's a 4-inch finished quarter square triangle. We'll cut 5.25-inch squares, cut them in half twice diagonally for 4 patches if you're doing patches. In the cutting instructions, I've listed cutting them at 5.5 inches to trim them down later. So we'll need 4 patches for the background fabric, 4 patches for the light fabric, and 8 patches for the medium fabric. Here are the cutting instructions, and for the cutting instructions, I've listed where we're doing the quarter square triangles 4 at a time, and you can either cut them larger to trim them down, or you can cut patches and just sew your patches together. And with AccuQuilt, you are sewing patches. Here are the fabrics. This is the dark fabric that goes in the center. These are the fabrics for the quarter square triangle. There are 4 large squares, and here are the patches for the stitch and flip method. So let's start with the stitch and flip method. I'm going to show you a short tutorial that shows you how to do this 2 ways. On the back of the accent fabrics, you're going to draw a diagonal line. Place this right sides together on the background, but if you can see, I've got my stitching just to the right side of that line. And this area here, the outside corner, we're going to cut off. You can use scissors or you can use your rotary cutter, and you're going to cut off this little right corner. And then you're going to flip it up like this and press it just like this. Because you stitched just to the right side of that line, you have a nice even edge on these 2 sides, and that's what you want. Our next unit is the snowball, and we place our square in the corner, and we line up our 3 points on the ruler, the top, the side, and then this side here, and cut. Next we'll do the quarter square triangles 4 at a time. We have our 4 large squares. In the demo I'm going to show you coming up, I used only 2 different fabrics. So just treat these 2 like the light fabrics, and these are the dark fabrics. We have our 4 squares. They're either cut 5.25 inches or 5.5 inches and trimmed down later. We take the light fabric and draw a diagonal line and put the 2 pieces together. And what you're doing now is you're just like you did with your half square triangles, you're going to make 4 half square triangles. Stitch on both sides of the diagonal line your scant 1/4 inch. Now we cut both of them in half on the diagonal line. Normally I say press the seams open, but for this method we're going to press toward the dark fabric. Next, we'll take two of the half square triangles, place them right sides together like this. We have alternating the light and dark. So place the light fabric over the dark fabric. And you're going to nest these seams together. This is why I use pressed toward the dark side. And you can feel with your fingers when those are nested. And what I like to do is put pins in it so nothing will move. And we're going to take a ruler, draw a diagonal line that's perpendicular to your seam. You know the drill by now. We're going to stitch a scant 1/4 inch on both sides of this line, and do that to this other set as well. Before we stitch it, I'm going to show you what it looks like. Once you stitch on this line, if I lay my ruler here and lift this up, you'll see that this is what the 1/4 square triangle will look like. So you want these lines to match up. Now they're stitched, and here's what it will look like. So cut on both diagonal lines. And you have your 4 1/4 square triangles. You can press these seams open or to one side, whichever you like. If you've cut your squares larger and you need to trim down now, we're going to trim them up. So we want a 4.5 inch trimmed unit. So half of 4.5 is 2 1/4. And I look on my ruler and I have a 2 1/4 mark here, and it comes all the way down to this diagonal line. Here's 2 1/4, and here's where it intersects this diagonal line. And there's 2 1/4 this way. This is the point you want to put right in the center of the block. So let me line it up and I'll show you. I'm lining up the diagonal line on the ruler with the seam line, and then this 2 1/4 inch mark, I'm lining up right in the center, the intersection in the center. Now I didn't cut these larger, so I'm looking on this side and it's 4.5 inches here, 4.5 inches here. And I have a little bit to cut off here and a little bit up here. So I'm going to do that. And you want these trimmed down to 4.5 inches. And these parts were okay. I'm just going to trim off the nubs. But if you cut your squares larger, you'll be trimming all 4 sides. Remember to find the halfway mark and put that in the center and line up your seam line. Our units are all done. We just lay the block out. I've got my proppet board and I start in the center. Stitch the top units together, the middle and the bottom. Press the seams and sew the rows together. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos.